Everyone, it is 5 p.m. on Monday, May the 10th. This is the County Council Caucus meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order. This is a hybrid meeting, which means we do have members in person and online. And looking at the room, in person we have myself, Vice Chair Somerville, Councilperson Cunningham, Councilperson Hervishon, Councilperson Howard, Councilperson Lawson. Online, we have Councilperson Dawson, Councilperson Flewelling, Councilperson Glover. I do not see online as yet two council members, Councilmember McKellen and Councilmember Rodman at this point in time. But we do constitute a quorum, therefore we can conduct business. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be conducted by Councilmember Lawson?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Public notice of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Item number 4, we're going to ask a member of council to make an amendment to the agenda before we approve it in order to remove a part of item number 8, the executive session, the words "through the Rural and Critical Lands Program Project." Those words need to be removed before we go into closed session. So may I have a motion to amend the agenda that way?
So move, sir.
Mr. Somerville makes the motion to,
I'll second.
and Ms. Howard makes the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the agenda will be altered to reflect the removal of those words from item number 8. Let it be known that Mr. Rodman has arrived.
Late.
Not really.
Okay,
And Mr. McKellen is here online as well.
Council McKellen is online. Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, there's Mr. McKellen. Okay, we're all in attendance now. I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended now.
So moved.
Mr. Cunningham makes the motion to approve the amended agenda. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Somerville makes the second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the amended agenda will be approved without any objections. Okay, item number 5, we're at the citizens' comments. Is there anybody in the audience? Hi, Joe, how are you?
I'm here, but I'm quiet as usual.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone who has phoned in that would like to make a comment regarding the caucus agenda?
No, sir.
There is no comments from the public. We will move to the discussion items. Item number 6 is the agenda review. In doing the agenda review this evening, we will also amend the agenda for the council meeting. We will be removing item number 4 from the consent agenda. When a lease agreement is done, 2 things have to take place. If it is a new lease, it requires a resolution and public hearing, which we were not able to do for this meeting. Therefore, that particular item will be removed from the agenda. So please make a note of that. So when we get to the actual agenda, I will ask for that agenda to be modified. Is there any other discussion regarding the agenda from any council member, either in person or online? Mr. Radman.
Yeah, just one item relative to, let me see which item it is. It's
has to do with, we're at second reading and public hearing on setting the fee for the solid waste and recycling.
Yes, let me find that.
I think it's item number 17.
Yes,
Okay, and there were two things along the way that council weighed in on. One was that they wanted to go to a millage, which would be ad valorem based, just like all property taxes, rather than a uniform fee. So we agreed to do that. And then council suggested that, that in terms of setting the millage, that we look at the actual budget for the current year that we're in, FY '21, and use the mill value that's inherent in that budget for FY '21. There was a subsequent discussion with staff, including Whitney, where if we took what we actually had for this year, which omitted some capital, just because we didn't spend capital, that the more logical number would be 11 million as the right number. If we were to divide the current mill value into that and round to the nearest tenth, that would put us at 5.2 mills. So having done those things, I think that's the intent of where we wanted to go as council, was to set a fixed mill value. And unless there's some disagreement, I think I would make that as a change that we would fold in when we get to that item. And the concept behind it is much like we did with USCB and TCL, where instead of adjusting the millage every year, we just had a fixed millage that's on the tax bill so that people can see, what the breakout is of that. So unless there's some disagreement with that, I think that's the change we should make at second reading.
we certainly will discuss that. Mr. Greenway?
Yeah, just for a point of clarification for council's benefit, what you have before you this evening is basically just an amendment to the ordinance that establishes the enterprise fund and say that the fund is going to be funded by a millage rate. We're actually going to propose a staff that we deal with the millage rate for the enterprise fund as a part of the budget ordinance coming later in June, after we have confirmed what the actual value of the mill would be, and we expect to have those numbers the first week of June.
Yeah, and that's what I thought we did discuss, so.
But I actually brought that forward, and then council said, no, go back and base it off of last year. So I'm comfortable either way, but it seems to me we went back to where we were sometime back.
Well, I think, and others can weigh in, I think it was appropriate for us to establish the millage rate so that we're most accurate. One of the things that we had discussed in putting together this as an individual set-aside enterprise fund so that we are upfront and honest with the taxpayers of what it actually cost us for all of the recycling and trash collection, and that we were concerned about the total value of that millage. At one time, we were talking about possibly 5.4 mils, and it was 10.2, or it was an $11 million. I think we're going to get there. I think what you have said is all we're doing is saying that we are going to set it as a millage. And then when we get to the third reading of the budget, by then, we will have an exact number that satisfies what you want to do, which is to have a fixed millage so that each and every year we know what that mill is. So I think, unless I'm reading it wrong, we're on the same page.
I think we're all saying the same thing. I think we're all in agreement. But I do believe that we're saying that we'll set a mill, but we won't reset it every year.
Correct.
It'll
Yeah.
just be one.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the mechanism for setting that is, whether we have to go through 3 readings.
Oh, no,
If I might,
it's part of the budget, right?
But it's different than the budget. The budget's for 1 year, and we're setting a millage that would be in place until we change it.
if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Brian has.
Go ahead, Brian.
I had my hand up. I think, you both have elements of my recollection correct. I understood that we were going to set the millage as part of the budget process. And however, I disagree that it was something that would be permanent. I understood that we would be addressing the issue of the needs of the utility, the solid waste and recycling utility every year according to their needs, just like we do with the water and sewer authority. So I think that, the stormwater utility rather, I think that it's something that we need to address. I think we all also understood that the needs of that solid waste and recycling utility in the first year of its inception was going to require an increase. I mean, we understood that, at least I did, in reviewing all the data, the needs, the infrastructure requirements, that we were going to have to set the millage a little bit higher than it would be a straight, even over, straight shift from one side of the budget, general ad valorem taxes, to the utility. It would need an increase. Now, how much that increase is going to require, I'm not really sure. So, but we need to have this during the budget discussion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a fair way of stating it. We would all like, I think the understanding is that, yes, we want to go to a millage for this, but I do agree with you. If we are to make dramatic changes in the way we conduct the collection of refuse and recycling and going to a MRF, going to transfer stations, there may be requirements down the road that will cause us to have other capital expenditures. And as we said, we want to be fair to the public to let them know exactly what this costs and why we're doing it this way.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just so you all are aware as well, we also, as a part of the staff level, we've initiated discussions. That meeting is coming up, I believe, later this week with the consultant who did our impact fee study about recalculating and redoing the solid waste impact fee discussion, which is also going to have to be balanced. If we do a solid waste impact fee, that'll have to balance out with the millage rate as well. So the millage rate actually might be lower based on the amount of money we project that we could raise with the impact fee for solid waste.
Right.
So,
Okay.
this will give us time to
Yeah.
do all of that.
And certainly when it comes up again on the agenda side of the meeting, we can have some further discussion and get to where we want to go. I think we're all on the same page. It's how we're going to get there that we'll need to do that. Okay.
So I don't have any problem with that. That's fine. It does seem to me, though, that it's something that we would not be changing it year in and year out. Otherwise, we might as well just leave it in the general fund as a line item with 50 or 100 other items that we have.
Well, I agree that we don't want to change it every year, but at this point in time, we're moving to a different methodology of how we're going to do this. And to get where we want to go may require a couple iterations before we absolutely say, okay, this is now how we're going to do that. Councilman Hervishon.
To that point, I think the increase in the value of a mill will defray some of that need
Yeah.
to reconfigure the millage rate on a
Right.
consistent basis. I would be curious in this discussion if we could get some sort of projection on what that would look like relative to, forthcoming expenditures and, if we have some idea as to what the millage increase will be year-over-year.
I think they're working on that now. It's like hedging a bet. You don't want to tip your hand because then, if something comes up in the next couple weeks as we finalize the budget and we say, well, mill is worth this, and then we say, oh, you know what? We forgot about that. So.
We should probably loop the auditor into that conversation as well, should we not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think the staff looking at the $11 million equating to the current mill value feels pretty comfortable that they would be covered, on that. And obviously, if they weren't, then we'd come back and redo the mill or have a separate line item in the budget. But anyway, okay, fair enough.
All right. Are there any other items on the agenda of any concern? Seeing none? Okay, the agenda will be acceptable to everybody. We're going to remove item number 4 on the consent agenda. We'll have a further discussion about the recycling. And so we're now ready to move on to any new business to come before council. At this point in time, before we go into our executive session, is there anything new that somebody wishes to bring up, either here in council chambers or online?
Yeah, Joe, I have one, actually two. I'm sorry, Logan, you had your hand up. I didn't even bother raising my hand.
You're all good, Brian. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
Two things real quick then. The first thing is I'm wondering how we're progressing, what is the estimation of receiving the census data as a result of the 2020 census? What's the timeline we're looking at?
I'll ask Mr. Greenway to weigh in on that. We hear all kinds of information, but go ahead, Mr. Greenway.
We have the state data already. Preliminarily, we expect to have the county data late summer, early fall. August, September is what they're telling us. I have initiated a call with Mr. Rainwater, who will be handling various aspects of that, redistricting and all, to try to get on his schedule to come and brief council about the process for any redistricting that might have to occur and what needs to take place in order for us to start that process. So we expect the data to be in for counties August or September based on what we're hearing from the census.
Thanks. While you're up there, Eric, the next one is for you probably as well.
Okay.
Isn't 2021 a reappraisal year? Or is it 22?
I would have to check into that. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'll have an answer for you before 6 o'clock.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right.
Good
That's
point.
all I had, Logan. Sorry.
Yeah, no, reappraisal is an interesting prospect. Okay, Mr. Cunningham was next, and then Mr. Glover.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if we had an update of when we're going to have our meetings on Facebook. I know we did YouTube, and we said we're going to wait a meeting or two, but I think we are at a month now of it being approved. So I was just curious if we had an update or what we need to do to make that happen.
Okay, well, take a look at that to see if we need to do that. Okay, and we'll get back to you on that. We'll discuss that with IT. Okay, Mr. Glover.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. At some point in time, could we get a update on the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation, basically what they're doing, what their plans are, and also bringing some kind of resolution with the alliance and as we move forward going into the future?
That's a good point. We will take up that information at the executive committee, the next executive committee, because we do have to bring council up to speed on exactly where we stand with the contract with the South Carolina Alliance and how we're going to move forward with that. So good point at this point in time. And then we can talk about the Economic Development Corporation and where we stand with them and what they plan to do for the coming year. So good point. So I've noted that. I've noted about the Facebook. Is there any other new business item that we need to discuss before we go into executive session? Okay, seeing none, I would ask for a motion to go into executive session for items number 8 and 9 pursuant to the South Carolina Code, Section 30-470A2, discussion of negotiations incident to the proposed contractual arrangements for the proposed sale or purchase of property, and a pending, threatened, or potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege. May I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion for executive session. May I have a second, please?
Mr. Chairman,
I'll
I'll
second.
Ms. Howard jumped in before you, Mr. Glover, so she will be the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion and without objection, we are going to enter into executive session at 5:20. We will come out of executive session, obviously before council begins at 6 p.m. Notice, those of you online, that it says click to join, so please click to join.
Do our clock.
going to be taken in executive session. Therefore, the council meeting is now going to be adjourned. It's 6:05, sorry for being a couple minutes late. We are now ready to proceed to our county council meeting. Broadcast is ready?
Yes, sir, but we need a 5-minute break between caucus and council.
Okay, we'll pick up in 5 minutes. Good evening, everyone. It's Monday, May 10th. It is now 6:11 PM, and I would like to call the County Council meeting to order. This is a hybrid meeting, which means we do have members of County Council in County Council chambers as well as online. And as we did in caucus, the following individuals are in fact in person this evening. Myself as chair, Vice Chair Somerville is here, Councilman Cunningham is here in person, Councilman Hervishon is here in person, Councilwoman Howard is here in person, Councilman Lawson is here in person, and Councilman Rodman is in person. Online this evening, we have Councilmans Dawson, Flewelling, Glover, and McKellen. And all 11 members of council are in present position to conduct the business of county council. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be conducted by Councilman Clausen?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you remain standing, please?
Yes, I was going to have Dr. Black from Campbell Chapel. Was he on the line with us? If not, let me go ahead and pray. Lord, we ask your blessing. Let us be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Let us use the wisdom you have given us to make decisions that are the best for many and not just a few. Let us protect those who cannot protect themselves. Let us put our pride and personalities aside to be productive for those we represent. Please bless our employees, our staff, our elected officials. Please bless and protect our law enforcement, first responders, and doctors and nurses, and keep them safe. We thank you for this blessing and allowing us to live in such a beautiful place. Amen.
Amen. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would like a member of council to amend the agenda as follows. If you turn to the last page of the agenda, which is the consent agenda, item number 4 needs to be removed this evening. We need a resolution and public hearing, which are not available this evening, and that's why this item will be removed. So may I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Somerville makes the motion. May I have a second, please?
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Howard makes the second. Duly motioned and second to amend the agenda to remove item number 4 from the consent agenda. This will be done without any objection. I see no objections from anyone in person or online, and therefore the agenda has now been amended. May I now have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion. May I have a second, please? Ms. Howard makes the second. Duly motioned and second to approve the amended agenda. Any questions? Seeing no questions, the amended agenda will be approved without objections. I see no objections, therefore, the agenda has been approved. Next is the approval of minutes from March 8th and March 22nd, 2021. May I have a motion to approve those two sets of minutes?
So moved.
Mr. Somerville makes the motion. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Howard makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion or concerns regarding the two sets of minutes? Seeing none, the minutes will be approved without any objections. I see no objections, therefore the minutes are approved. We now turn to the administrator's report. Mr. Greenway, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of council. It's my pleasure this evening. I'm going to ask you to come up. Come up with me. We have a relatively new employee to introduce to you all this evening. I received some criticism. We're going to be working on this a little bit better about getting word out about new employees. that come on board, both to you all and to our other employees. But this is Paget Cowan. He began employment with us on April 26, 2021 as our Human Resources Director, or Director of Human Resources, or Employment Services, whatever you want to do. He's been a great addition to our team already. He already feels like this is his home, and we're welcome to have him. He's a seasoned human resource professional with over 18 years of successful track record of advancement and achievement. He has produced programs and solutions that have raised staff morale, decreased expenses, strengthened the communications, and guided organizations through major changes. Some of his strengths are with employment relations, succession planning, employment law, time management, career development, benefits, and OSHA compliance. So he will also be taking over the duties of overseeing our risk management once we approve the new budget and new organization chart. So Paget, I'll give you a few moments here to say something to council if you'd like to do so. I know I'm putting you on the spot there. So.
One, I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited. My wife and I are new to Beaufort County. We're still in the process of looking for a home, but we're excited to be here. And I'm excited to kind of see how things progress. I already know I've gotten a great staff. I've already gotten to know them over the last couple of weeks. So it's really about all I have to say, and I'm glad I've got to meet all of you too.
Hey, well, thank you very much, Patrick. Good luck.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Our next employee, I'm going to ask her to come up with me here. Stand with me. This is Victoria Moyer. Vicky, she works in our purchasing department. She's a contract specialist. She originally started out with us in engineering. She's been with us 2.5 years. She manages all county contracts, provides contract support to all county departments, assists with writing solicitations, contracts, and assists in the administration of the P cards, which is a very, very big task for us. She maintains the vendor registry. She provides assistance to vendors wanting to register as a vendor, and she administers a surplus auction sales program through GovDeals and GovWorld for all county departments. And she just in general keeps us all straight in the purchasing world. Something unique about her is she was elected as a Phillipsburg, Ohio council member in 2006, so she knows what it's like to sit in your seat from Ohio, and she served a 4-year term. She moved to Beaufort in 2015 and bought the Dog House hot dog restaurant and ran it until it closed in 2019. If you all are not familiar with the Dog House restaurant, it's the little building on the left going out of Ladies Island over to St. Helena. She spends her spare time right now studying for the UPPCC Professional Public Procurement Buyer Certification. And that is a mouthful to say. So anyway, welcome. I appreciate it. It's fun to work with you. I've enjoyed it since my time here, working with you since 2018. So you want to say anything?
Just thank you. Thank you for the recognition. Thank you for all you do. I really appreciate your work. And I want to thank Dave Thomas, boss, of course, for being such an amazing boss and mentor. I don't think this far if he wasn't there mentoring me and making me want to push further every day.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Let's go around.
Mr. Chairman, could I just let Vicky know that I missed the doghouse?
Speaking of Mr. Thomas, he's our next employee to be recognized this evening. Also from our purchasing department, he's our purchasing director. You all know Dave well. You hear from him quite often, but he has been with us 14 years in December 2021. So just a few months short of being here 14 years. Again, he oversees all solicitations, RFPs, IFBs, REQs, and requests for information in accordance with the procurement code. He does all of the RFP, IFB meetings and bid openings, and is the lead county negotiator for all contracts. His responsibility also includes supervising the staff, conducting evaluations, and overseeing the county P card program, and dealing with the surplus auction. Dave, something unique about him, he is a 20-year veteran. He's a retired major from the Army Reserves, airborne qualified. He received the George C. Marshall Award as the top cadet in Army ROTC in 1983 while attending the University of South Carolina, Columbia. In 2012, he received the Manager of the Year Award from the South Carolina Association of Governmental Purchasing Officials. And Dave also is a large horse person, I believe. So Dave, why don't you say a few words to everyone?
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the support of the county council members, and I've really enjoyed working with all the council members through the years. It's just been my honor serving the county, and thank you very much for the recognition.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Our next person, I'm not sure where she is. Our next person comes to us from Broadcast Services as a production assistant. Jan, and I'm going to butcher this last name, Boudre. She started in January 2013. She helps, oh, there you are. Sorry about that. So Jan directs meetings, edits video, runs camera, and coordinates the video archives for the county. And something unique about her is she was the first female gas station attendant in Beaufort County. How do you know that?
Because it was 1973, there were no gas stations.
I can attest to that. That's true.
Appreciate your service.
I just wanted to say thank you for letting me work here. Thanks, Scott, for hiring me. And it's not really work when you learn the job.
So that this next person that I'm going to introduce, she does not know she's going to be highlighted tonight. But I want to tell you, I look forward to coming to work each day because of her, to hear what humorous thing she's got up her sleeve to do or to say to me. So come on up, Brenna.
Oh my God.
You all know what Brenna does, so I'm not going to go into all of that, but she essentially assists the clerk and council with doing a variety of things with agendas and minutes and getting all of us straight for these nights and other committee meetings. She interacts with the public daily and is frequently complimented on her outstanding customer service skills and pleasant attitude. I don't think I've ever seen Brenna in the time that she's worked with us. She came here in 2019. I don't think I've ever seen her have a bad day. She's always in a good mood, always has a smile for us. She joined us from the South Carolina Department of Social Services, where for years she assisted the managing attorney, helping provide legal services relative to child protection, foster care, adoption, and adult protection. She is married to an avid hunter, Bradley Owens, and has one daughter, Brinley Rose Owens, who is 8. Fun fact about her, she went to school for massage therapy and was an outstanding starting softball player in high school, known for her base stealing. So, and I'll say one other thing that's unique about Brenda. Apparently, she's the only member of the clerk's office that has a watch that registers 8 a.m. So,
Thank you. That was a surprise. I'm gonna have read, but thank you. I enjoy being a part of the clerk council's office and working for some fabulous people and with Eric. And like Jan said, when you love your job, it's not really work. So thank you again.
and now I'm going to bring up Mr. Atkinson to give you all an update on the distant learning grant, and then I have one more thing, and then I'll be done.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eric, and good afternoon to everyone. The Coastal Community Foundation has received a total of 8 grant applications to date. After carefully reviewing all of these applications, 5 were deemed complete and eligible to receive grant funding. A selection committee scored each of these applications. Scores were averaged, and questions were provided to the applicants in preparation for site visits. Site visits were conducted and provided the selection committee the opportunity to gain a complete understanding in person of the work and action plans proposed by each applicant. Consensus was reached by the committee members, and an award recommendation was sent to and subsequently approved by the Coastal Community Foundation's Board of Directors 2 weeks ago. Awarded grants are as follows. The Beaufort Jasper YMCA of the Low Country was awarded a grant in the amount of $25,000. Funding for this organization will go toward ensuring that there are an adequate number of distant learning sites with space that follows CDC and COVID social distancing guidelines, provide funds for general operating expenses, and sponsor scholarships for families who cannot afford a distance learning program on their own. The Boys and Girls Club of Hilton Head was awarded a grant in the amount of $25,000. Funding for this organization will be allocated for scholarships for families who cannot afford the cost of their distance learning after-school and summer program. Beaufort Academy was awarded a grant in the amount of $20,000. Funding for this organization will support much-needed technology and hardware updates and renovations, assist in implementing a permanent online option for distance learning, will help with the creation of new distance learning platforms that will be utilized for all disruptions on campus moving forward. The Extra Mile Club of the Low Country was awarded a grant in the amount of $10,000. Funding for this organization will support providing computers for children to use for distance learning at home, hotspots for those in areas without sufficient internet connectivity, assist in building capacity for their current programs, and to assist in building capacity for their future summer programs and online programs for kids during the summer. Love House Learning Academy was awarded a grant in the amount of $20,000. Funding for this organization will be utilized for operating costs for their virtual learning center, covering expenses related to meeting CDC COVID regulations, including sanitation, facility, maintenance, space, and to maintain staffing for their online academic programs. This totals $100,000, which is one half of what was allotted for the grant. And a request will be made later this week for the second half of the grant funds, $100,000, to be made available to the CCF for additional awards. In addition, I've been working with our communications staff and with CCF staff, and we're going to do a public release later on after the administrator approves it, and do a press release so that everyone can know what good work these folks are doing. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one quick question of Mr. Atkinson? How many students do you think is going to be impacted by this funding? Do you have any idea?
Yes, sir. I don't have an actual number, but it would be in the hundreds.
Be where?
It would be in the hundreds of students. A lot of these organizations have hundreds of students individually within their programs. So I don't know exactly how many will participate in the online portions, but it would affect hundreds of students.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And then one final item, I just want to bring the council's attention and ask you for your assistance. We are in the process right now of receiving guidance for all of the funding that has been approved through what we call ARPA and other state funding bills that have been passed. So I'm just asking you all, if you all have projects in your district that relate to transportation, infrastructure needs, COVID relief, COVID response, emergency response, things like that, if you all would send us those ideas, be very creative. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, once-in-a-career opportunity that we may never get again. And we'd like to hear from you all. We are working with a comprehensive group of folks from other municipalities, others, TCL, USCB, other agencies around the county, Beaufort Memorial Hospital, to try to put together a priority list for you all to approve and to see to spend some of this money on. Broadband's a big component of that. transportation, one of the things that I'm working on considering doing in Mr. Dawson's district is some sort of transportation for after-school care to get kids out there in the rural areas that don't have access to community center. 2 community centers for after-school care is doing. So those are the types of things we need to be thinking about. So if you all would send us your ideas, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. That concludes my report. Sorry it was so long. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a question on Eric. Is this pot of money for the whole county, or did the municipalities get part of their own pot of money?
They got their own. So ARPA provided $37.2 million to the county, and then also additional money to each municipality.
Municipality,
But
okay.
we also have House Bill 3707, that's the state bill, that's going to be around $60-70 million of funds are to be spread out around the state for infrastructure. We have the rural broadband bill. That's another pot of money that we have. And then we have other COVID relief bills out there. And then, of course, we have infrastructure bills that we think are likely forthcoming through the Biden administration. So the quicker we can get these lists together, we'll be at the doorstep with projects ready to go whenever this guidance comes out. Our money for the first distribution, which is half of the 37.2, will be deposited in our accounts either tomorrow or it wasn't today, so it'll be tomorrow or sometime this week. So we will have that pot of money to start doing some things with. So it's really timely right now that we hear from you as to things in your district.
Are there any restrictions, or is it just wide open?
There are some restrictions on the use of the money, but it's pretty broad right now.
Okay.
One of the things that we're going to be looking at with particularly Phil to give relief to the situation that he's in with EMS and detention center would be the additional payments that we can make for emergency responders and things like that. So,
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you very much. Sorry that my report was so lengthy tonight.
No, that's quite all right. Okay, we now have some proclamations that are going to be done. The first one is going to be done by Councilman McKellen.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. As a preamble to reading the 2 proclamations that I have this evening, I would like to state that last week was the 37th anniversary of Public Service Recognition Week. In the face of unprecedented challenges this past year, and as a lead-in to the proclamations, Beaufort County's dedicated public servants have risen to the occasion. If you're not speaking, would you be kind enough to just mute your microphones? Thank you. Bringing strength, healing, and hope to this community. Our public servants are a living reminder that we take care of one another. As we work to defeat the pandemic and rebuild our economy, it's more important than ever to recognize and reflect upon both our collective loss and our collective resilience. During Public Service Recognition Week, we celebrate and thank our public servants in Beaufort County who exemplify dedication to the common good. In that regard, I have a proclamation to read this evening to be directed to the emergency medical services personnel who are represented there in council chambers. I'm proud to state that whereas Beaufort County is fortunate in having a highly trained and well-equipped emergency medical service, and whereas this emergency medical service is staffed by professional and experienced emergency medical technicians and paramedics who are all on call day and night, and whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the members of emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore be it resolved that Beaufort County Council proclaims May 16th to May 21st Emergency Medical Services Week. Dated this 26th day of April, Joe Passaman, Chairman, Beaufort County Council. And it was a great deal of pride that we make this presentation to the members of emergency services who are assembled here this evening. Joe, will you ask if there's any comments?
Yes, they're going to make a comment.
Okay.
The only comment I would want to make is that Beaufort County is fortunate to have the best of the best in emergency medicine. You will not find a better team. You'll never find anyone more compassionate or caring or skilled. So I consider this the best team possible, and I'm so proud to be their director.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr.
I have
McKellen, you're going to do the next one as well.
I have another proclamation this evening to designate Asian American and Pacific Islanders Month. In 1977, United States Representatives Frank Horton from New York and Norman Mineta from California introduced a resolution to proclaim the first 10 days of May as Asian Pacific Heritage Week. That was signed by President Jimmy Carter into law in 1978. Whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders were initially celebrated in 1978, in 1990, their recognition expanded to a month-long observance in the United States. And whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have a rich heritage thousands of years old, and whereas the month of May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States in May of 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869, by a majority of Chinese immigrant workers who laid the tracks. And whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders bring a diversity that represents one of our greatest strengths, and by recognizing their contributions and accomplishments, we celebrate the importance of inclusion for building a brighter future for all of our citizens. And whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have enriched our social, intellectual, and artistic life in the United States, and whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have made valuable contributions to all areas of life in Beaufort County, including government, business, arts and sciences, medicine, education, law enforcement, and the military for more than a century. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Beaufort County Council proclaims May 2021 as Asian American and Pacific Islanders Month. I believe there are two people here this evening to accept this proclamation, Carolyn Furman and Phoebe Knight. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Eric, would you ask them if they would like to make some comments?
Oh, too short. Thank you for this opportunity. I came to America about 28 years ago, and 22 years moved my family to Beaufort, and we fell in love, and we stayed here since then. I love Beaufort. Must have the water. Must be the water. So. No, thank you so much for recognizing this.
Thank you.
First off, I want to humbly say how honored I am and thank you very much. My father immigrated here in the early 60s. He fought in the Vietnam War 4 tours before he was naturalized. So I'm a second generation American, and I'm very proud to be a Beaufortonian and to be an American. Thank you for this distinction.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Our final proclamation will be read by Councilman Gerald Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proclamation is a proclamation honoring Ms. Frida Mitchell of the Sheldon community for her work in child care reform and civil rights. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Beaufort County Council would like to pay tribute to the life and achievements of Ms. Frida R. Mitchell, a tireless civil rights and social justice activist and a fierce advocate for children and families in Beaufort County. And whereas Frida Mitchell was born June 20, 1925 in Sheldon, South Carolina, to the parents who laid a strong foundation for education and service to their children. And whereas Ms. Mitchell attended a private boarding school for girls, as there was no school bus transportation for African American children to attend the then segregated high school in Beaufort, where she studied business education and excelled with a perfect 4.0 average. And whereas Ms. Mitchell became an educator, initially teaching first grade, she traveled for a short time in search of a greater prosperity before returning to Beaufort to accept a position at Beaufort County Schools. It was at this time that she observed the dismal living conditions and lack of political opportunities of many residents in her community and wanted to make a difference. She rallied residents in the Sheldon community and organized a massive voter registration campaign, and that effort helped elect the first African American to Beaufort County Council. And whereas Beaufort County pushed toward integrated schools, Frida Mitchell was among those on the front lines by organizing and chairing a group called Beaufort County Education Committee, the central force for school segregation. The committee's effort led to a landmark election in 1968 when Frida Mitchell was among the first African Americans elected to a school board in South Carolina. She remained a member of the board for 16 years. And whereas Ms. Mitchell saw her life's work as shaping children and as co-director of a community development project at Penn Center Services Center, she used her position to direct a particular spotlight onto daycare needs for the working poor. Whereas in 1970, she convened a historic meeting of the numerous programs and state agencies to organize the United Communities for Child Development, better known as UCCD, which allowed for state and federal funding resources to support child care programs throughout the state and serve as the executive director. And whereas this program received national attention and capitulated Frida Mitchell into a position as a national figure in major daycare policy decisions. Mitchell's effort, once only local, were escalated throughout the southern states as well as overseas in South Africa when W.K. Kellogg Foundation recruited her to conduct an international tour. And whereas in 1996, Ms. Mitchell, with the help of U.S. Senator Fritz Hollings, helped secure $500,000 grant for construction of a modern child care facility on St. Helena Island, which is named in her honor. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the County Council of Beaufort County that the County Council hereby wishes to honor Frida Mitchell's family, friends, and fellow citizens in her life and achievements. This 10th day of May 21st, signed by Joe Passman, Beaufort County Council Chairman. This proclamation will be presented this Friday, May the 14th at TCL, where there's a dedication ceremony in honor of Ms. Mitchell. The proclamation will then be presented to her two daughters at that dedication. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Thank you. Certainly a life well lived. We are at the citizen comments. Is there any member in the audience who wishes to make a comment? If you will step forward. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Backer, and I live in Okatee. And I'm here tonight to express my concerns of the proposed sales and use tax. Number one, I'm fundamentally opposed to tax increases, particularly a regressive tax like a sales tax. But in addition to that, I am really opposed to taxing residents to fund undefined and unspecified projects or programs. The municipalities who will benefit from some of this funding have their own means to generate funds to fund their own local projects. There is abundant federal funding apparently available. The administrator just noted a few minutes ago that the county has just received $37 million, and an unspecified amount is also going to the municipalities. So I urge this council to reject the sales tax proposal at this time. On another issue, I really don't like the idea of remote meetings. We have passed, I think we're on the downside of the COVID pandemic. This group does the business of the public, and it should be in a public forum and not behind a camera or a video screen. So I also ask this group to reject moving to remote meetings for any kind of public meeting. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Is there any member of the public online who wishes to make a comment?
No, sir.
Okay. We will close the public session. We will move to item number 11, our liaison and committee reports. Ms. Howard.
Briefly, I'd like to mention the Beaufort Memorial Hospital Board met April 28th. Paul Somerville and myself attended that. One thing they reported that March was a good month financially, better than in past months. They have hired a full-time counselor in the emergency room for the fentanyl program, and they're going to drop down to 3 times a week for vaccines. And 67% of their employees as of April 28th had been vaccinated for completed vaccination. I don't know if Paul had anything else or not.
Thank you. Any other reports? Okay, seeing no other reports, we will now move to the approval of the consent agenda, which is on the last page of our agenda. May I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda? Mr. Somerville makes the motion. May I have a second, please? Mr. Rodman makes the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without any objections. I do not see any objections. Therefore, the consent agenda is approved. Item number 13 is a third reading of an ordinance to make permanent the previously adopted emergency resolution allowing for electronic or hybrid meetings and other matters related thereto. May I have a motion for item number 13, please? Mr. Somerville makes the motion, and Mr. Glover makes the second. Discussion. Okay, bunch of hands went up. Mr. Dawson, you were first.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. To the council as a whole, I voted in favor of this ordinance the last time. However, I've had some second thoughts. I personally think that we should be allowed to meet virtually whenever circumstance dictates it. but I also think that we should put a cap on it. All of our boards and commission are restricted to a limit on how many meetings they can miss before we remove them from the boards. And so I think council as a whole, we should consider putting a limit on the number of virtual meetings we can have on an annual basis. I just throw that out there for thought.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham, you were next.
As I've done the last two times, I move to amend and to remove county council meetings from the ordinance. At the same time, I think those should be in person. I'm willing to meet in the middle and go virtual for the committee and board meetings. So I'll put that on the floor.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor to amend. Is there a second?
I'll second that, sir.
Mr. Hervishon made the second. Okay, discussion about the amendment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna vote against the amendment. I don't know, I think many of us remember during Hurricane Matthew, we were unable to meet. And that, I hope will never happen again, but the only way we could even talk to each other, because we were scattered all over the southeast at the time, was a conference call with the then County Administrator Gary Kubik. It was very disjointed. It was hard to know what was going on. So I will vote against that amendment because I think there are times when County Council does need to have those type of meetings.
Any other comments?
Can I comment towards that?
Hold on a second. Mr. Hervishon, you're next.
Yeah, I've got a question about that. So what we've got here is this makes the emergency resolution permanent, but let's just say for some reason this were to fail, we could always institute another emergency resolution, probably in advance of a hurricane, because we know they're coming, and just say, well, for the next, 2 weeks, month, whatever it's gonna be, we can meet virtually. That seems to be a good resolution to that problem. I'll support Mr. Cunningham's amendment. I think it is a good compromise. A lot of the times we don't get comments at committee meetings. I think that's the main reason why we should be in public, so we can get public comment, we can face the public, we get feedback from the public. So I think that's a good compromise. I don't think that we should be in a position where we're doing this permanently. I don't think it provides for good public discourse. I think we all know what we signed up for when we signed up for it. I know personally this cost me a lot of money to come here. It's an hour up, it's an hour back, but it's not about me, it's about the public and doing the public's business. And we know what we signed up for, so we should be in person as much as possible. I do like Councilman Glover's idea of putting a cap on the number of minutes or the number of meetings. I think that's interesting. I think we should probably explore that. That's my opinion.
Mr. Flewelling, and it was Mr. Dawson who made that, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the motion to amend and also support the motion should that fail. I think that we need to have a provision for allowing meetings under certain circumstances. Another possible avenue or approach to this might be a case-by-case permission or designation from the chairman that the circumstances for this particular member are such that it would warrant absence or attendance rather by remote viewing. And so that's just something to throw out there should the motion to amend fail. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Dawson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would say to the motion that's on the floor that I will not support it. Here I am sitting in Trident Hospital, and I'm a prime example that I'm meeting with you all virtually today. Other than virtual, this is a meeting that I would miss. So it goes back to the statement I made earlier where I feel like we should be allowed to meet virtually, but we should put a stipulation on the number of meetings that we can have virtually.
Any other comments? Mr. Somerville?
Yeah, I'm going to oppose the motion. I think Gerald mentioned that, somebody mentioned that we cap the number of meetings that committee members, boards and commission members can miss. this will give them an opportunity to attend some of those meetings that they would have missed. And the same for us. I mean, it'll give us an opportunity to participate in meetings that we otherwise couldn't. There are times, there'll be times for everybody, I suspect. I can't, but anyway, I'll oppose the motion.
Any other comments? Mr. McKellen, next.
Yeah. I think that I'm going to oppose the amendment because I think that due to unforeseen circumstances, there will be times when people will be unable to attend. We have the technology available these days so that everyone can attend all the meetings. And I think this is just an attempt to silence someone who can't make it to the meeting, but who could attend through technology. And I resent the fact that I'll be silenced if this amendment passes, and that my constituents will not be represented when, if due to unforeseen circumstances, all I have to do is sign on to the computer. This is not something that will be a regular occurrence, but would usually just occur in extraordinary circumstances and unforeseen circumstances. And I object to being silenced by an amendment that will prevent me from representing my constituents.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
Yes, we are actually elected officials, and so we are the ones that have to look at our constituents. I am planning on being here every meeting that I possibly can in person, but I do like the fact that with technology, and Zoom only came about 7 years ago, Facebook has been with us less than 20 years, and when you look at how much things have changed in that time, that by allowing people when they need to come on electronically, that means that we are being more transparent because we do have all 11 people here and they all have the opportunity to be here no matter what happens in the background around them. And again, Mr. Dawson, perfect example today that there's no mask ordinance in place, and yet we don't have everyone here today, but everyone's able to attend by video. So I'm going to go ahead and not vote for the amendment. At this point, again, I want to have as many people as involved as I can in everything that we do.
Okay. Any other additional comments pertinent to this? Mr. Cunningham?
I guess first I'll address two things that were stated. As you guys know, I think it was about 4 weeks ago, I voted in favor of extending the emergency ordinance in Beaufort County. Not because I thought there was an emergency or that we need to extend it, but it gave everybody the ability to stay virtual. Mr. Lawson made that point, and it was a great point. If we have a hurricane, we do go into a state of emergency. That is done by the governor, and we all know Beaufort County would follow, being on the coastline. That would give us access to be virtual in those forms, and I would 100% support that. As to the second comment of silencing an individual, I will go back to the exact same thing I stated. I voted in favor of any individual staying home to continue to have their voice heard by supporting the emergency ordinance during this time. That's when we started getting into making this permanent. So to make a statement like that, I do find that out of line and a bit far, but to each their own. The third thing is, I go the same thing with what Chris said. We all know what we signed up for. We all know the impact this would have on us personally, on our families, and the burden that it would take. Let's say we have the discussion of putting a cap on, like Mr. Dawson talked about and Mr. Somerville said he supported. When do we start negotiating that? Do we talk about that now? Do we make that amendment after this fails? Because after that, is it too late?
Mr. Rodman?
Yeah, I would welcome some kind of a permitted exception. I don't know that we necessarily need to go the cap route. I'd be very comfortable making it at the discretion of the chairman if somebody wanted to make that motion. In general, though, I do feel we should make every effort to be here. Congress meets in person, the General Assembly meets in person. And in my 15 years on council, the times that somebody's been missing has been few and far between. So there's been a pretty substantial time that everybody has been there. But if somebody wanted to make a motion to the effect that we could make it at the discretion of the chairman, I would be very supportive of that.
I'm willing to amend it to that.
Well, now we're amending your amendment. which is appropriate.
Oh, he's the maker of the motion, Mr. Chairman. So as long as the second agrees, and I guess that was Mr. Hervishon.
Agreed.
Okay,
So we amend it to make it the discretion of you, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
I'm not sure I understand what that means. Could someone explain that? What discretion to do what?
To not be in person for a county council meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'm directing that to you, sir.
My understanding would be that you as a council member or any council member would ask permission from me not to be able to attend the meeting for whatever reason, and it's at my discretion to say yay or nay.
And if you say no, what does that mean?
Oh, then you would be absent from the meeting.
You would be excluded from the meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Somerville?
Yeah, I'm going to oppose that as well. I think we are elected as adults, responsible adults, all 11 of us, and our constituents expect us to act accordingly. I don't think Mother May I is appropriate for this body every time we have an emergency or situation where we cannot attend.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Quickly, just let me weigh in on the issue of attending. I have chosen not to attend right now, but I think I would probably be in full steam of attendance probably in June, July, as a lot of the vaccination and stuff is taking place around the county. But I think for us to not embrace technology would be really a disservice to this community. My brother tells me I am in the dark ages, so I am really taking an opportunity to move forward by embracing technology. I will attend council meetings, but there are times like Mr. Dawson right now that I may not be there, but I can attend meetings, and I think we need to leave that at the discretion of the council member. But I think we hold council as high esteem in attending when possible. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other comments? The amended motion on the floor, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to alter the third reading to exclude council meetings and allow the chair to determine if a council member is excused from that meeting. Is that the essence of the motion and the second?
I think so. I think it's more along the lines of the chair has the ability to allow that council member to attend virtually.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I give them permission to be excluded from in person.
Correct.
Okay, everybody understand that? Okay, since we have it duly motioned and second, Mr. Cunningham, you will go first.
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon.
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
No.
Mr. Flewelling.
Yes.
Mr. Glover.
No.
Ms. Howard.
No.
Mr. Lawson.
Mark Lawson, no.
Mr. McKellen.
No.
Mr. Rodman.
Yes.
Mr. Somerville.
No.
Chair votes no. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 yes, 7 no. The amendment is defeated.
Sure you had 4? I only counted 3.
There's 4. There's 4.
4.
Okay. I think I counted
4 yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're back to the original motion.
Councilmember Dawson has a question.
Oh, Councilmember Dawson.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to amend I would move to amend the motion to allow council to exercise virtual meetings with stipulations not to exceed 3 on an annual basis.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Mr. Hervishon.
Does that include council meetings or visit committee and council.
Well, since the matter says virtual meetings, it would include both.
So potentially that would be one day.
Yeah. Mr. Dawson?
I'm sorry, as the maker of the motion, I was referring to council meetings,
Okay.
3 consecutive council meetings.
Clarification.
Clarification?
Look, would that be annual by fiscal year or annual January, December?
Well, again, that's going to be up to the maker of the motion to determine what it would be.
And the second.
And the second.
For clarification, then, I would say from January 1 to December 31st annually.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dawson said consecutive meetings. Does he mean consecutive, or does he mean 3 annual meetings?
3 annual meetings, 1 meeting, 2 meeting, 3 meeting.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Point of clarification, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flewellen?
To clarify, what I'm voting yes for would be that the original motion be amended to exclude county council meetings, the full council meetings, and that a member would be entitled to miss or attend a meeting virtually on 3 occasions throughout the year,
Correct.
Right.
barring emergency circumstances like a hurricane.
No, doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
No. That's the amended motion.
So I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Are there penalties attached for missing more than 3 meetings?
No, you are a council member. You cannot be subject to discipline if you miss more than 3 meetings. It's not like you are on some other commission or board. As an elected member of county council, you're subject to the discretion of the voters. If you missed meetings, the voters would then say, well, you know, that person doesn't represent us enough times, we'll replace them.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Everybody
Yes,
understand? Go ahead,
Yes,
Mr.
just-
Glover.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And following along with what Larry just asked, if there is a meeting and if I missed 3 meetings and then I opt to participate virtually in the council meetings, I'm still absent then, or you would just exclude me from participating in the meeting virtually after 3?
You could not be excluded if you attend county council, whether it's in person or virtual, by the result of the passage of this. You are a duly elected council person, and therefore you are fulfilling your obligation, whether you're online or in person. Mr. Somerville.
Wait a second. If we're going to have a cap, which is what we're talking about, a cap of 3, I think is what Gerald proposed. The only way you can have a cap is to say after 3, you can't participate anymore. Otherwise, you don't have a cap.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right. But you could not exclude a council member.
Well, if we just vote that you can only, if you can only participate virtually in 3 meetings, we certainly are excluding you from the 4th, the 5th,
Well,
and the 6th.
I agree with you, but that's not what this motion is stating.
Well, let's be clear on what we're getting into.
That's the result of that motion.
Yep.
Once again, you're excluding people from full participation in the deliberations of this body.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Everybody understands the amendment to the motion. Gerald, you made the motion, therefore you will vote first.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mr. Flewelling?
Yes.
Mr. Glover?
No.
Mr. Hervishon?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lawson,
Mark Lawson, no.
Mr. McKellen,
No.
Mr. Rodman,
No.
Mr. Somerville.
No.
Chair votes no. Again, the motion fails, 4 yes, 7 no. We're back to the original motion that's on the floor. The original motion on the floor was voted by Mr. Somerville as the motioner and Mr. Glover as the second. Any further discussion? Then we begin with Mr. Somerville.
Yes. This is the main motion, right?
Main
Yeah,
motion.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Glover.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
No.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Mr. Flewelling.
No.
Mr. Harvishon.
No.
Ms. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. Lawson.
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. McKellen.
Yes.
Mr. Rodman.
No.
The chair votes yes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes, and 4 no. The motion passes. We're at item number 14, a public hearing and third reading of an ordinance as amended authorizing the execution and delivery by an SSRC and between Beaufort County, South Carolina, and Project Garden, which is Materials Research Group, providing for a payment of fee in lieu of taxes and other matters related thereto. May I have a motion for item number 14?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McKellen made the motion, and Mr. Flewelling, did I hear you say second?
You did, sir, without objection, please.
Okay. Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion? See no discussion? This is
Public hearing,
going,
sir. This is a public hearing.
yes, you're absolutely right. Is there any member of the public, either in person or online, who wishes to make a statement about this? Mr. O'Toole.
Chairman and council members, I chose a more comfortable seat tonight, and I do know there are 46 counties in South Carolina, so I'm learning. I just wanted to give the public an opportunity to hear the nature of the project. So I'll just run through the name of the company, their code name, and then the amount of investment in jobs. So I think that would be helpful. Just so you know, we go by code names so that if it involves employee moves and that kind of thing, that the employees' lives aren't put in chaos while a decision's being made. So, but as soon as we can share the details with the public, we try to do that. So Project Glass, you'll probably learn how we code these things. Project Glass was Glassworks, South Carolina, represents a $15 million, just over $15 million and 55 jobs. Material Research Group is a glass components manufacturer out of New Jersey, the Garden State. So they were Garden, but it is the Material Research Group. It represents just over $3 million investment and 26 jobs. Salt Marsh Brewing, we called it Project Burger. I apologize. And the owner of it owned a burger joint in Beaufort County. That may be putting it mildly. But it represents a $4.4 million, just under $4.5 million investment and 43 jobs. And then Project Stone wasn't named after Charlie Stone, but it was named after Stoneworks. We worked hand in glove with legal and with John Rembolt at the airport. They were displaced by the expansion. They were actually looking at leaving Beaufort County, and we were able to move them into the 779 Robert Smalls building. But that represents a $3.2 million investment and 21 new jobs. And you can see that project's taking form. all told, and I appreciate your patience as we've gone through this process of implementing FELOs and SSRCs, these 4 projects add up to $46 million and represent 145 jobs. And to date, we're averaging, with all the projects that we've done, an average compensation of $47,000. So you start to put that together in a dual income house, we think we're improving the lives of Beaufort County residents. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. Any other questions before we vote? This will be done without objection. The public has spoken. The public portion has been closed. And I see no objections. Therefore, item number 14 is approved. Item number 15 is a public hearing and third reading of an ordinance as amended authorizing the execution and delivery of an SSRC by and between Beaufort County, South Carolina, and Project Burger. As was said by Mr. O'Toole, it is the Salt Marsh Brewing Company to provide a payment in lieu of taxes and other matters related thereto. May I have such a motion? Ms. Howard makes the motion. A second, please. Mr. Rodman makes the second. Is there any question about this at all? Seeing no questions, the public will now weigh in. Is there any member of the public, either here or online, that has a question regarding this matter? Since there is no public involvement, the public portion has been closed, and we are now ready to vote. This will be done without objection. Seeing no objections, item number 15 is approved. Item number 16, a public hearing and third reading of an ordinance to levy and impose a 1% local option sales tax and use tax within Beaufort County, South Carolina, pursuant to Section 4-10-10 et sec of the South Carolina Code of Laws, 1976, as amended, to define the specific purpose of the tax, to impose conditions and restrictions upon the use of the proceeds of the tax, to provide a countywide referendum for the imposition of the tax, to provide for the conduct of such referendum, to provide for the administration of the tax, and other matters related thereto. May I have such a motion, please? Mr. Somerville makes the motion. May I have a second, please?
I'll make the second.
Mr. Lawson makes the second. Discussion. Mr. Hervishon.
Thank you. I'm going to oppose this again. I think that government by referendum is problematic for a variety of reasons. As soon as we pass this, I'm highly confident that we will. We have no involvement. Can't say yea or nay to it. And effectively, what you're going to get is a bunch of special interest groups who are able to market and support such a tax on a ballot that we're going to get 12 to 15% of the voter turnout. So, the argument that, well, we should let the people express an opinion, we should let the people vote on this, it's 12 to 15% is not the people, it's not the general population. Notwithstanding, once this goes on, effectively, there's not going to be any way to take it off. We're going to have to get 15% of the electorate, which is about 30,000 people, to sign a petition just to even get it back on a ballot. So very, very difficult given where we live and the community structures that we have. I oppose this. I've opposed it twice before. I'm going to continue to oppose it. And unfortunately, that's the last I get to say about it.
Other comments before we go to the public? Mr. Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm certainly going to support this, as I have from the beginning. The municipalities have asked us to do this for years, and we, somewhere along the line, have committed to do that, a different group, slightly different group. But the main reason I'm supporting this is it gives relief on our ad valorem tax, because the money that will go to the municipalities and to the county for various projects that they determine along the way is money that they will not have to add ad valorem tax to pay for. And 100% actually more than 100% of the money that will come back to the municipalities and the county for different projects to avoid having to raise ad valorem tax will be paid for by visitors and tourists, over 100% of it. So to me, that's a deal you can't pass up. The 70%, some of that is also paid by visitors and tourists, will come back to all of us who own property, personal property and real property in Beaufort County in the form of tax rebates. So I see this as a great deal, and I've always supported it, and I'll continue to support it today.
Any other council member? Mr. Cunningham?
Yeah, one of the biggest things I have with this, and I'm all for giving the people the right to decide if they want it, but again, it's just like Chris said, we'll be lucky to get 12 or 15% of voter turnout. That's not the voice of the people. The moment this passes, which I believe it's going to as well, we're out of the game. And whoever has the money and whoever has the support behind them can push whatever agenda they want on 12 to 15% of our voters. We know that's realistic and we know that's going to happen, especially in our small town community. If someone was willing to move this to a general election, I would get behind you to at least give the people a chance to let them do what they want to do. But that's not realistic right now by putting it on this ballot. The second thing I have a hard time doing is it's never going away. And we need to be honest with the public and transparent that if this passes in November, we will be coming back to you next year for a referendum for our roads. We have $1 billion that we know we're gonna need over the next 10 years for our roads. So this isn't 7%, this is 8%. And if it's not 8% and it stays for 7%, then our roads are gonna suffer. That is not a secret, and we need to be upfront with the public about that. I've already told all the municipalities and the mayors that I'm willing to meet with any of them and talk about different ways we can go about doing this to get them the revenue that they need for the specific projects that they want. I've had multiple mayors reach out to me, and I'm already scheduling those meetings. Anybody's more than welcome to join me. I hope that you guys reconsider to at least move this to another election where we can get the real people's vote to give this the fair chance that it deserves. So again, I'm going to continue to not support this.
Any other council member before I go to the public?
Joe?
Mr. Lawson?
I'm going to support it, and it's because our municipalities have asked us to do this. They've asked us to go ahead and have this and have to go to the public to make a vote. And whether it's 15%, whether it's 80%, that is the correct way to do it. It's not our decision. It's the public's decision on what they decide to do and how this is presented to them. I'm sure we'll learn a lot more about it, but obviously you look at it, by doing the 1 cent sales tax, that allows some of our visitors to help pay our taxes instead of just being the burden of people that live here. As we all know, we've talked about, has been mentioned, I think it's 71% of the money that's raised goes back to tax relief for our county council people, our county residents. So with this vote, we're going to have the opportunity that the citizens decide. It helps support our towns. And I think Paul made a great point that allows the towns then to spend money on things they need without them raising taxes, and without us raising taxes on our own constituents by having this pool of money that comes in. And I think the number was 60% or 70% would be from out-of-town people that's going to help pay for this. So again, I'm going to support it going to the public for them to decide what we're going to do. I'm not going to decide. I'm going to let the public decide what we need to do.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Ms. Howard?
I'm not going to repeat everything that Councilman Somerville and Councilman Larson said. I agree with both of them. I have supported the municipalities in this since I was elected first time around, and will continue to support them on this. I disagree that we're going to have a 1 cent road tax. That's something in the future we do not know about. And I do think the public has the right to vote on this time, and it's needed now.
Any other? Mr. Hervashon?
Yeah, just so that we're all on the same page and so that we're telling the public accurate information. 71%, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not year one, that's like year 5. It's more like 65, I think, percent year 1, and then it scales to 71.
It does over a 5-year period of time.
5-year period.
Yes.
Right, so we gotta get to year 5 of this tax before it's even 70%. It is less than that, so the public should be aware of that. Council should be aware of that. And, we should just be upfront when we're discussing such things.
So it is 65% first year?
65, 64,
I
something.
think it's 67 to 71. I think it goes in increments like that, something like that.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman,
Yeah,
Mr. Llewellyn.
I have continued to oppose this for a couple reasons. One has been pointed out, there's no sunset for it. There's no practical way so it's permanent for all practical purposes. And it's also very regressive on the people that can least afford it. I went back and looked at the numbers. We've never actually looked at the numbers, as I remember, at council. So I did do those, sent out to earlier. Sarah, can you find that one page that has lost at the top for me? My recollection and my belief is that the amount that the visitors pay is more like a third, not a higher amount, from two capacities. One, I had calculated it many years ago, and David Starkey, who was our CFO for many years, had independently calculated roughly at a third. And that seems to make some sense, because the people that are here are paying taxes on a variety of things, not all things, but a variety of things for week in and week out. Whereas the visitors are here for a short time, and they're not necessarily buying hard goods and that type of thing. So just by the numbers, in my mind, if you looked out and you said, 2-3 years from now, maybe the penny would equate to 40 million. It's probably running at about 35 right now. But just put some numbers on it. If you split it 2/3, 1/3, the residents are paying about 27 million a year in sales taxes. And then you look at where it gets distributed. Again, using the 71, I wasn't aware of the 66, but it's about 27 million in tax relief. About 7 million going to come to the county, because that's distributed on a population basis. So Hilton Head will get about 2. There's actually a Robin Hood feature in this, and the state takes 5%. So we write them a check for 2 million every year. And you can see Beaufort, Port Royal, and Bluffton each would get about 2/3 to 3/4 of a million a year. There seems to be a lot of talk, or a sense that there's no other way that the municipalities can raise money. And that's not true. They can do a referendum for capital projects just like we do, and just like the town of Hilton Head does. And the advantage of that is that they're doing it on an ad valorem basis, so they're not penalizing the people that can least afford it. I think the two concerns are, one is that it makes it that much more difficult to pass a transportation sales tax when we need it. So the high growth areas, I don't honestly see another way to fund those needs as we go forward without going back for that second penny. And again, it's the low end taxpayers that benefit. If you look at the winners, I was kind of surprised at this, but hate to say this, but my district is the big winner, so I shouldn't be arguing about this. But a high percentage of that tax relief falls, to the hotels and the big beachfront homes and that type of thing. Hilton Head does well, and South Carolina does well. The piece I don't really understand is combined, Bluffton, Beaufort, and Port Royal, which are the ones that want to do this, are going to get back about 5 cents on the dollar. I don't understand quite why they want to do that. It seems to me they have another alternative, and they're penalizing their own people. So that's where the numbers are. Just thought you might find them interesting.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
Any other, Mr. Llewellyn, you had a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna support this measure going to the voters. I'm not gonna decide for myself. I'm not gonna publicize how I'm gonna vote when I'm in the ballot box. But I suspect that you all will be surprised by the number of voters that turn out and by what they choose to say in the ballot box altogether. Just my personal opinion. I have no data for it, but I think we've consistently in Beaufort County voted opposed bond referendums that are unrelated to the Rural and Critical Lands Board, the Rural and Critical Lands Program, except for 2 roads bonds. Other than that, we've denied them all. So we'll see how it turns out.
Thank you. Any other comments from council before I go to the public? Seeing none, Yes, Kurt.
I apologize, I need to correct that discussion about the 71, 29%. The way the statute is worded is that when the act was adopted, X decades ago, during the first year after the act was adopted, it was a 60%, and then it ramped up to the 5th year after the act was adopted. So it dealt
So it
with
is 71
state
right?
being adopted, state statute being adopted. It does not deal with the referendum. So it's now these days and forevermore 71%, 29%.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, we will turn to the public. Is there any member of the public in-house that wishes to speak? And there is. And then we'll see if there's anybody online.
June Sullivan, have lived in Beaufort County for 10 years, have never felt compelled to join a meeting until today. I beg all of you to consider the times. We're coming off of a year of COVID. Dr. Fauci says we're looking at least another year till we get our freedoms back. So let's not be counting on tourism, because we saw what that did to us last year, right? Right now, you have a lot of people out of work. Governor McMaster's trying to take back the federal bump that these people got. And they're saying they're getting paid to stay home. They're not staying home and getting paid. There are no jobs. I think city council, as well as all of our government, should start looking at things that matter to the taxpayer. This tax is like a sharp stick in the eye. And for somebody to say to me, we're gonna take your money and then I'm gonna give you a little piece of it back on your income taxes. That doesn't work. You're still taking my money. You're still taking money from people who have lost jobs, have lost family members, and have lost businesses. It's hardly the time to be asking for more money, especially more money that you can't even say what you want to do with. So put it on the bill, put it on the vote, see who does show up and see where it goes. But I understand most of these seats run unchallenged. For how many years? You know, another tax might just find yourselves with some challenges. Start working for the people, please. Thank you.
Is there anyone online who wishes to make a comment? None. Okay, we will close the public comment. Mr. Rodman.
Yeah, one additional comment. You know, the argument for doing this has been that it's something that the municipalities want. And that we had agreed to do it. To the best of my knowledge, that has not become before council for us to say that we would do it. So this is the first time we've been there, to the best of my knowledge. And if you look at whether we have a say or not, the municipalities are 38% of the population, and the unincorporated is 62%. So we have almost 50% more people that we're representing than even the municipalities are. So it's really a joint decision. And, you know, the argument seems to be that send it to the voters and let them vote. Yeah, that sounds good. But I've never heard anybody argue the merits of why we should do it. I just have not heard any argument of why we should do it.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote? Mr. Glover.
Mr. Chairman, I do. And I agree with Mr. Rodman, what you just said. And I feel that once we vote on this, the comment was made that it's out of our hands. It seems to me that there are groups out there that will hopefully debate this issue. I don't know how we assure that to happen, but it seems to me that this referendum should be debated, should be discussed, the pros and cons taken to the public. I don't know, such groups as the League of Women Voters could do it. Some other groups that's out there could debate this issue going forward. I will vote in favor of it, to move it to the public. I think I'm supporting it because the municipality asked for it, but I also see it as the only remedy for 6%ers on the Avalon's taxes. And that was established after Act 380 or whatever that act is, 308. I can't remember. I know it's a 3-something.
388.
388 was put in place, and the only relief the 6%ers can get is this loss tax. So I'm supporting it for the 6%ers out there.
Any other comments before we vote? Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote against this. I tried to ration with the thought of putting it to the public to allow them to make the decision. But in good conscience, I cannot impose this on the citizens of my district that I represent. I can't support this. I won't support it.
Okay, any other comments?
One last comment, please.
Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quickly, 6%ers would be people that this is their secondary residence, correct?
Yes. And businesses.
And business.
And businesses, but quite a few would be secondary residences. Those are not voters of Beaufort County. Their registration would be where they claim their home state. So we're giving a tax relief to 6%ers that aren't even voting citizens here in Beaufort County. So they cannot voice their opinion, but they're going to catch the biggest break. Just I'll throw that out there.
And landowners with theirs property.
Yeah. But I mean, if I can just, I think everyone gets the tax break, not just
6%.
Correct.
Everybody does, yeah.
Everybody. And again, they own property and I just want to make sure I understood. I thought maybe you knew something I didn't know.
Okay. All right, Mr. Somerville, we begin with you.
Yes.
Mr. Lawson.
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
No.
Mr. Dawson.
No.
Mr. Flewelling.
Yes.
Mr. Glover.
Yes.
Mr. Harvishon.
No.
Ms. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. McKellen. Mr. McKellen, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Mr. Rodman.
No.
The chair votes yes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes, 4 no. The motion is successful. Item number 17, a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 2020/19, which established the solid waste and recycling enterprise. May I have such a motion, please? Mr. Rodman, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Howard. Discussion before we go to the public.
Well, just as information, this is basically establishing it, that we're going to do it as a millage, similar to what we do for property taxes, rather than a uniform fee.
Correct. Okay. Is there any
Gives the
member
option,
of the
okay.
public here wishes to make comment? Anybody online? We will close the public portion. Are we ready to vote? Okay, then I see no objection, so we will do this without objection. Are there any objections? Seeing none, then item number 17 passes. Item number 18, a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of utility easements number 90-1550 and 90-1551 encumbering property owned by Beaufort County. May I have a motion for that, please? Mr. Rodman.
I'll second.
Working hard.
Oh, I'm sorry, who made the second?
Councilman Cunningham.
Logan, you made the
Yes, sir.
second, thank you. Any discussion before we go to the public? Seeing none, is there any member of the public here or online who wishes to make a comment?
No, sir.
Seeing none, the public portion is closed. This will be done without any objection. Are there any objections? Okay, item number 18 passes. Item number 19, a second reading of an ordinance approving the intergovernmental agreements between Beaufort County, Port Royal, and the city of Beaufort regarding Project Burger, which is Salt Marsh Brewery Company, Garden, which is Materials Research Group, Glass, which is Glassworks, and Stone, which is Stoneworks Incorporated.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Howard makes the motion.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flewelling makes the second. Are there any comments by members of council? Seeing no comments, this will be done without objection. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, item number 19 is successful. Item number 20 is a public hearing for a resolution 2021/11, authorizing the interim county administrator to execute a lease agreement between Beaufort County, the town of Hilton Head Island, and the historic Mitchellville Freedom Park for the property known as Beach City Road parcels. May I have such a motion, please?
Okay.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion.
Is that how you do it? You say, okay.
I'll second.
Ms. Howard makes the second.
Speaks up, I'll speak up.
Is there any comments by members of council? Seeing none, is there any member of the public here or online that wishes to make a comment? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed, and this will be done without objection. Are there any objections? Seeing no objection, item number 20 is approved. The last item is matters arising out of executive session. We cannot take any action in the caucus for what took place in executive session. Mr. Lawson?
I was going to say, I think we still have number 4 from the consent agenda?
No, number 4 from the consent agenda was removed.
Okay, all right, good. Never mind, sorry.
Mr. Somerville?
Yes, sir. I'd like to move that council authorize staff and the legal department to proceed with litigation as proposed and outlined in our earlier executive session during caucus.
I'll second that.
Duly motioned and seconded by Mr. Somerville and Mr. Cunningham. Is there any discussion?
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flewelling?
Thank you. I don't believe we've had enough time to investigate these matters for ourselves and to really think about it. There really wasn't even an opportunity to ask questions in the executive session. We ran through it so quickly and came up on the end of the meeting. I don't feel comfortable voting for this on such a short notice kind of thing. It's a very important matter, and I think we can't give a good vote or with a clear conscience unless we have a chance to think about it. I didn't even know it was coming, and so didn't even know what questions to prepare for. And it was so out of the blue and such a short fuse. I don't think it's fair to ask us to vote on this matter today. So I'm going to make a motion, sir, that we delay the vote on this matter until the next county council meeting and have an opportunity to discuss it again in executive session.
Mr. Flewelling makes an amendment to the motion arising out of executive session. Is there a second to that?
Make a second for the purpose of the discussion.
Okay. Duly motioned and seconded to not take action this evening, but postpone it to the next council meeting on the 24th. Discussion. Mr. Somerville.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm going to oppose the amendment because this is a matter that has become critical. Actually, it's been critical for some time. And it's now, if there is such a thing, it's more critical. So I'm going to oppose the amendment.
Mr. Cunningham.
I'm with Mr. Somerville. I think this has gone on long enough, and the information we were given, this should have been addressed a while ago.
Mr. Rodman?
Yeah, I'm highly in favor of the motion, and it's long overdue. And the only thing I would say is if we do wait 2 weeks, I think this is something that we could do in public discussion. I don't know that there's anything in this particular issue that would say we would have to do it in executive session. And I think it would be a useful discussion unless legal says we can't do that, but it seems to me it would be well served given the nature of the problem.
Executive session is an exception to FOIA. Council does not have to avail itself of executive session.
Mr. Hervishon?
Yeah, I would just say it doesn't seem like things are gonna get materially worse in the next 2 weeks. And if the council feels as though they didn't have adequate time to ask questions or prepare, I think it's fair that we should give them that time, so long as it's not more than 2 weeks. So I'm gonna support this.
Mr. Dawson?
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, everybody understands the amended motion is to not take any action this evening, that we postpone any action for 2 weeks to our council meeting on the 24th. The motion was made by, oh gosh, who made the motion? Mr. Flewelling made the motion, and Mr. Rodman made the second. Mr. Flewelling, you will go first.
I vote yes to the amendment.
Okay? Mr. Rodman?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
No.
Mr. Dawson?
No.
Mr. Flewelling, you already voted. Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lawson?
Mark Lawson, no.
Mr. McKellen?
No.
Mr. Somerville?
No.
And the chair votes no. 7 no, 4 yes. The motion is defeated. We're back to the original motion. Any further discussion? Mr. Somerville, you made the motion. You will go first.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
Mr. Flewelling?
I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. McKellen?
Yes.
Mr. Rodman?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Chair.
7, 8, 9, 10. And I am a yes. We have 10 yes, 1 no. The motion is successful. We're at the second citizens' comments. Is there any citizen comments to be made by any member of the public, either in person or online? Seeing none? Everybody wants to go home. All matters coming before county council have been done this evening. Thank you all for attending, either in person or online. And this meeting is now adjourned at 7:49 p.m.
Just in time. I want to make a motion to extend.
Good luck with that.
I'm going to turn that one down.